Welcome to Life Stories, where real experiences shape unforgettable narratives. Imagine discovering that the person you trusted most had stolen your future. That's exactly what happened to Sophia when she learned her mother had emptied her college fund to pay for her brother's medical school. Betrayed and left with nothing, she made a choice: to fight back, to build something greater, and to reclaim her father's lost legacy. This is a story of resilience, justice, and success against all odds. Subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's journey. The day I discovered my mother had stolen my future started like any other Thursday. The air in Los Angeles was crisp, the usual hum of campus life filling the spaces between my hurried footsteps. I was on my way to the financial aid office at UCLA, expecting to sort out a minor paperwork issue. Nothing urgent. Just a routine check-in. At least, that's what I thought. Inside, the office smelled of paper and stale coffee, and I took a seat across from a woman whose nameplate read Ms. Thompson. She looked at me with polite efficiency, scanning her computer screen before her expression subtly changed. A flicker of hesitation. A pause just a little too long. "I'm sorry, Sophia," she said, her voice dipping into something softer, more careful. "But your account was emptied 3 days ago. There are no funds remaining." I blinked. There must be a mistake. I leaned forward in the hard plastic chair, my heart picking up pace. That account was set up when I was born. My grandparents left that money specifically for my education. Ms. Thompson's expression deepened into something I recognized: pity. I had seen it before, in moments when people knew they were about to shatter someone's reality. "The withdrawal was authorized by the primary account holder," she explained. "Your mother." Her words sank in slowly, like ink bleeding through paper. My mother. Everything appeared to be in order. Legally. My stomach twisted as if I had just swallowed ice water. I could barely hear Ms. Thompson as she continued speaking, her voice muffled by the rush of blood in my ears. Then my phone vibrated in my lap. I glanced down. A text from Jacob. "Got into Harvard Med. Mom's throwing a celebration dinner tonight. Be there by 7. And just like that, the pieces clicked together with nauseating clarity. I barely remember leaving the office. The California sun was bright, too bright, blinding me as I stumbled out onto the pavement. My vision blurred. My hands trembled as I gripped my phone, dialing my mother's number. Straight to voicemail. Of course. She wouldn't take my calls. Not today. Not when she had already decided my fate for me. "Hey, bestie. You look like you've seen a ghost." Madison's voice cut through my daze as she jogged across the quad to meet me. One look at my face and her teasing expression vanished. "What happened?" She took it. "Maddie." My voice cracked. "All of it. My entire tuition fund." Madison's hands gripped my shoulders, her sharp blue eyes widening in disbelief. "Who? Who took it?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Who else? My mother. She emptied my account to pay for Jacob's medical school." Madison's face darkened with fury. "That's impossible. It's illegal." "Not when her name was on the account too," I murmured. "I guess my future was just a backup plan for golden boy Jacob all along." Madison was shaking her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. "You have to confront her, Sophia. This is beyond messed up." "Oh, I will." I exhaled sharply, forcing myself to steady my breathing. "At Jacob's celebration dinner tonight." I checked my phone again. 2:30 p.m. "Want to help me plan what to say?" Madison's eyes blazed with determination. "Damn right I do." We spent the afternoon at our favorite coffee shop, where I cycled between rage and despair. Madison helped me rehearse different ways to confront my mother. But no matter how much we prepared, nothing could have readied me for what I would feel when I stepped through the doors of my childhood home that evening. The house was decorated with balloons and a massive congratulations banner. My mother was in full hostess mode, floating around in her favorite pearl necklace, air-kissing guests. and serving appetizers like the perfect socialite she always pretended to be. When she saw me, she barely hesitated before pressing a light kiss to my cheek. Her smile tight. "Sophia. Finally. Isn't this wonderful?" Her voice dripped with artificial joy. "Jacob has such wonderful news." "Yeah. Mom," I said, forcing a smile. "I heard. Harvard Med, pretty expensive. Isn't it?" For the briefest moment, she froze. Just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. The flicker of recognition. The silent acknowledgement of what she had done. And then, just as quickly, she smoothed it over. Her voice light and airy. "We'll manage. Family always finds a way." I tilted my head. My voice lowering. "Found a way already. Didn't you?" Before she could respond, Jacob bounded down the stairs. His grin wide. His arms open. "Soph. You made it." He pulled me into a hug. And for a brief, painful second, I almost forgot I was supposed to be furious. Jacob had always been affectionate. Always the oblivious one. He didn't even know. Dinner was announced before I had the chance to say another word. I sat through the toasts. The congratulations. The proud parental speeches. Every word felt like a blade twisting deeper into my gut. With each passing minute, my anger crystallized into something harder, colder. And by the time dessert arrived, I knew what I had to do. I stood, raising my glass. "I'd like to make a toast too," I announced. The room fell silent. I turned my gaze directly to my mother. "To Harvard Medical School," I said, my voice steady. "To achieving your dreams." My fingers tightened around the stem of my glass. "No matter who you have to steal from to get there." For a moment, the only sound in the room was the quiet clink of silverware being set down. A heavy silence settled over the dinner table, like the charged air before a storm. Across from me, my mother's polite smile faltered. "Sophia," she said, her voice low. Warning. The same tone she had used all my life to silence me when I got too close to the truth. But this time, I wasn't a child. And this time, I wasn't backing down. "Go on, Mom," I continued, tilting my head as I held my glass up. My voice sweet with mock encouragement. "Tell everyone. Tell them how you paid for Jacob's acceptance." Jacob, sitting to my right, looked up sharply. "What is she talking about, Mom?" His voice was steady, but I saw the confusion in his eyes. My mother's fingers curled around her napkin. "This is neither the time nor the place." I laughed. The sound hollow. "Oh, I think it's the perfect time. Everyone here deserves to know how you emptied my college fund to pay for Jacob's tuition." A few gasps echoed around the table. My aunt looked at my mother in shock. My uncle cleared his throat uncomfortably. They hadn't known. She hadn't even had the decency to tell our family. Jacob's face paled. "You did what?" "I did what was necessary," my mother said stiffly, her posture rigid. She wasn't denying it. Jacob shook his head, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. "Mom, that money was for Sophia's education. That wasn't yours to take." My mother exhaled sharply, setting down her fork with slow precision. "Your sister has always been resourceful. She would have figured something out." She turned to me then, her gaze cold. "Jacob's future is more important than a degree in, what was it again, Sophia? Marketing?" I felt my entire body go cold. There it was. The truth. She had never believed in me. Never thought I was worth investing in. Jacob looked between us, his face darkening with anger. "You could have at least told her." My mother sighed, as if she were exhausted by our inability to see things from her perspective. "Jacob, this is your night. Let's not ruin it with." "I'm dropping out," I interrupted, setting my glass down with a sharp clink. My mother's head snapped toward me. "Excuse me? I can't afford tuition anymore," I said, my voice even. "So, as of tomorrow, I'll be officially withdrawing from UCLA." Chaos erupted at the table. My uncle started asking questions. My aunt muttered something under her breath. Jacob looked shell-shocked. But I wasn't waiting for their reactions. I picked up my purse and pushed my chair back. Congratulations again, Jacob, I said. I hope Harvard is everything you dreamed it would be. Then, without another word, I walked out the front door. The night air was crisp against my burning skin. My heart pounded. Adrenaline buzzing through my veins. I pulled out my phone, my fingers shaking, and dialed Ethan's number. He picked up on the second ring. Sophia, everything okay? I exhaled. Remember that business idea we talked about? A pause. Then, yeah, I'm ready to start. Tonight. Ethan didn't hesitate. Meet me at my office in an hour. His office was a small co-working space in downtown LA, nothing fancy. Just a few desks and a shared espresso machine. But tonight, it felt like the start of something bigger. I arrived to find him already setting up. His laptop open. A whiteboard covered in rough sketches and notes. His expression shifted from curiosity to determination when he saw me. "You're serious about this," he said. "Completely." I sat down, running a hand through my hair, the weight of the evening still pressing on my chest. But beneath the anger, beneath the betrayal, there was something else now, purpose. I told him everything about the money, about my mother, about how I had nothing left to lose. "So," I said finally, leaning forward, "let's build something she can't take from me." Ethan nodded, his sharp green eyes locking onto mine. "Let's do it." The next few weeks were a blur. Madison jumped in immediately, juggling her classes while helping me refine our plan. We spent hours in coffee shops, scribbling ideas, making lists, calling in favors. The idea was simple but powerful: an online marketplace for vintage college merchandise. Every university had decades of design changes, and nostalgia was a goldmine. People wanted the exact sweatshirt they wore 20 years ago, the pennant that had once hung in their dorm. I had 3 years of experience working at the UCLA bookstore. I knew the collectors, the suppliers, the market trends. Ethan brought the tech skills. He built the website in a matter of days, designing it to be sleek, intuitive, authentic. And Madison, she was the glue that held us together, researching pricing, sourcing merchandise, keeping me from collapsing under stress. The first real test came when we listed our first batch of inventory: sweatshirts from the 80s and 90s, old fraternity pins, vintage Ivy League scarves. Within 24 hours, we were sold out. I barely had time to process the success before reality tried to creep back in. One night, as we sat in Ethan's office, surrounded by stacks of newly sourced inventory, my phone buzzed. "Jacob." I let it ring. Madison, sitting across from me, sighed. "You can't ignore him forever. You know." I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. "Watch me," I muttered, flipping my phone over. The truth was, I wasn't ready. Not to hear his voice. Not to hear whatever excuse my mother had fed him. I needed time. I needed to build this first. Then, a week later, my mother showed up at Ethan's office. She stood in the doorway, her posture stiff, dressed in the same designer clothes she had worn at Jacob's dinner. "You're making a mistake," she said, her voice calm, controlled. I didn't even look up from the sweatshirt I was photographing. "This little business won't last," she continued. "Come home. We'll figure something out for your tuition." I finally looked at her. "Like what?" I asked. "Stealing from someone else's college fund?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. That money was always meant for whoever needed it most. I exhaled sharply. "Carter's medical school." She didn't deny it. "Get out," I said. "Unless you're here to buy something. Get out." She hesitated, like she had something else to say. And then, before I could stop myself, I asked the question that had haunted me for weeks. "Why?" My voice was quiet. But there was a raw edge to it. Why was I never enough for you? For the first time. Something flickered in her eyes. Regret. Maybe even shame. But then, just as quickly, it was gone. You're throwing your life away, she said. Just like your father did. And with that, she walked out. Her words echoed in my head long after she was gone. Just like your father did. It wasn't the first time she had dismissed him like that. My father had died when I was young. And my mother rarely spoke about him except to imply that he had been a dreamer. Someone who wasted his life chasing things that never paid off. But something in her voice that night, it was different. There was something behind those words. Something heavier. What wasn't she telling me? I tried to shake it off. Tried to focus on the business. But the thought wouldn't leave me alone. Then, 2 nights later, I got a message that changed everything. Ryan, hey. About my dad's collection, there's something you should know. It's about your family. Ryan and I had worked together at the Ukla bookstore. His father had been a well-known collector of vintage college memorabilia. And Ryan had been trying to sell off parts of his collection for years. We met at a coffee shop the next day. He was already waiting when I arrived. A thick manila envelope sitting on the table in front of him. Sophia, he said. His voice serious. I didn't know if I should tell you this. But after what happened with your mom, you need to see this. I sat down. My chest tight with anticipation. See what? Ryan slid the envelope toward me. My dad kept everything. He used to tell me that someday, the truth would matter. Inside were old photographs, newspaper clippings, bank statements. The first photo made my breath catch in my throat. It was a picture of my father and Ryan's dad standing in front of a store. Jensen and Allen Vintage Collectibles. I looked up at Ryan. My heart pounding. What is this? Your father wasn't a failure like your mom always claimed. Ryan said quietly. He and my dad started this business together. It was worth millions. They were pioneers in the vintage collectibles market. I shook my head. No. That's not possible. My mother said. Ryan cut me off. She lied. Look at the bank records. I flipped through the documents. The numbers were staggering. The business had been thriving right up until the year my father died. What happened? I whispered. Ryan hesitated. Your mother happened. He pointed to a series of bank statements. She convinced your dad to put everything in her name. For tax purposes. She said. 2 weeks before he died, she sold the business and pocketed everything. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small. Too hot. Ryan's voice was gentle. That college fund she stole? That was nothing compared to what she really took. My hands trembled as I flipped through the final document, a report from the new owners. The business had gone bankrupt 6 months after she sold it. They claimed fraud. Ryan said. Said the books were cooked. My stomach twisted violently. Had my father known? Had he figured it out before he died? And then the real question hit me. Was my father's death even an accident? I looked at Ryan. My pulse racing. I need to talk to Ethan. By the time I got to Ethan's office, my mind was spinning. The betrayal. The lies. The money, none of it made sense. But one thing was clear, my mother had taken everything from my father. Ethan was waiting when I arrived. And as soon as I put the documents on his desk, his expression darkened. He skimmed through them quickly, his jaw tightening with every page. This explains why you're so good at this, he said finally. It's in your blood. I swallowed hard. I wasn't sure whether that made me feel better or worse. We have to go public with this, Madison said from the corner. Her arms crossed tightly over her chest. People need to know what she did. But Ethan shook his head. Not yet. He tapped the documents. First. We need to build something bigger than she ever imagined. I looked at him, understanding what he meant. If I wanted real justice, I needed power. I needed to win. In the following weeks, we expanded fast. We secured partnerships with 3 major universities. Sales tripled. Collectors from all over the country started reaching out. And then, just as we hit our biggest sales milestone yet, my phone rang. Jacob. I hesitated, staring at his name on the screen. But this time, I answered. His voice was quieter than usual. We need to talk. I exhaled. I'm listening. He hesitated. Then, I don't think I want to be a doctor. That stunned me into silence. I never wanted this, he admitted. Mom pushed me into it. And now I don't know what to do. I ran a hand through my hair. Jacob, if you're looking for permission to quit, you don't need it. But you do need to start making your own choices. A pause. Then, can I come see you? I exhaled. Yeah. Meet me at Ethan's office. Jacob arrived looking exhausted. He sat down across from me, staring at the paperwork on my desk, the contracts, the financial reports, the success I had built from nothing. And then I showed him the documents Ryan had given me. Jacob read them in stunned silence. When he finally looked up, his face was pale. All these years, he whispered. She made it sound like Dad was a dreamer who couldn't provide for us. But she was the one who, he stopped, swallowing hard. She stole everything. I nodded. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Ethan leaned back, watching us carefully. Your mother still thinks she's in control. It's time to prove her wrong. I looked at the website analytics on my screen. We just had our biggest sales day ever. I said, I'm going to build something bigger than she ever dreamed possible. Then I turned to Jacob. And if you're really done with med school, I could use some help. A slow smile spread across his face. I'm in. The morning we signed the papers for the store, the sky was painted in shades of gold and soft blue. The same building my father had built his dream in, the one my mother had stolen, was finally mine. Ours. Jacob stood beside me as we watched the workers put up the new sign, Jensen and Allen Vintage Collectibles. Dad would be proud, he murmured. I nodded, my chest tightening. Yeah, I think so too. For the first time in years, I felt like I had won. Not just against my mother. Not just in reclaiming what was stolen, but in proving to myself that I was strong enough to build something of my own. Inside, the store was alive again. Customers browsed through carefully authenticated vintage college merchandise. Collectors placed new orders. And the buzz of conversation filled the air. This was more than a business. It was a legacy reborn. My phone buzzed. A message from Madison. You did it. I smiled, tucking my phone away. There was still work to do, new deals to make, new challenges ahead. But for now, for this moment, I allowed myself to breathe. Across the street, a black car was parked. Inside, I knew my mother was watching. She had lost everything. Not just her wealth, but the power she had wielded over us for so long. And yet, I felt no satisfaction in seeing her like this. Only a quiet acceptance that some things and some people couldn't be saved. With one last glance at the store, I turned and walked inside. The past was finally behind me. The future, mine to build. Subscribe to Life Stories for more incredible real-life narratives.